engines will not know how to recommend you to anyone. So if your cultural experiences aren't online, they're harder to discover. If your group offerings are not packaged, they're harder to sell. If your heritage attractions are not described well, they are harder to include in itineraries. If your meeting assets, destination videos, trade tools, images, and stories are outdated, you're making it harder for planners, the consumer, agents, media, and even AI platforms to find you and promote you. So in this new era, visibility is not just about being seen. We all go to trade shows, we have that booth, we hand out tchotchkes and pins, and we say, come to my destination, it's more than sun, sand, and sea. However, you're talking about culture. You're talking about airlift. You're talking about cruise. People want to know the specifics and why they should pick you and not pick someone else. Whether it's a Black traveler, a Hispanic traveler, Native American, Asian American, Caribbean traveler, or someone from the diaspora just trying to get home. They are cultural communities who are waiting on you so that you can be discovered. They're already traveling. They're just going to spend their money with someone else who they get recommended by for those family vacations, those meetings, those group cruises. So guess what? That means that your heritage sites matter. Your local guides matter. Your historians matter. Your artists, restaurants, festivals, churches, and when tourism is done right, everyone has a seat at the table. So over the last few days and over today specifically, this afternoon, we're going to talk about the future of multicultural tourism specifically. Heritage travel as it relates to airlift, cruise, MICE, Smurf, destination marketing. And I don't mean the Smurfs like the little blue ones. I don't mean mice like the rodentia. Meetings, incentives, conferences, and expos, right? So we're going to ask real questions, and I want you to write these questions down in your mind, on your tablet, in your phone. How do we turn culture into a bookable tourism product? How do we target these specific audiences that are spending $100 billion every year so that they pick you? How are we helping travel agents and meeting planners sell the experience? How do we make cruise visitors want to come back and become stopover visitors? How do we make destinations appear friendly to multicultural audiences, not just the guy in the white glove serving as the butler or the waiter? So I want to thank you because deals happen in rooms like you've been in this week. Partnerships are born in rooms like this, but today is where we do the work, where we brainstorm in order to take our business model to 2027 and beyond, and really think about, spend some time investing intellectually on what we can do to take our business to the next level. So welcome again, and remember that culture moves markets, AI creates leverage, storytelling feeds discovery, and airlift creates access. But guess what? Partnership turns opportunity into revenue. Welcome again, and thank you. Let's begin. Our first speaker is Miss Mandala. You can come take the stage, and Miss Felicity will introduce you.
Ms. Laura J. Mandala is the Managing Director of Mandala Research, LLC. This morning, she will be speaking on multicultural travel, communities, economic development, and sustainability. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. This is my 13th year speaking with all of you and tracking multicultural tourism over time. And let me tell you how things have changed. I don't know about the rest of you, but this is what I woke up to this morning. We have a quote from Donald Trump to say, "The Smithsonian cannot be trusted to tell the American story with honesty and gratitude." Now, I think everyone in this room realizes that the Smithsonian is the bearer of our history, all of our history, and importantly, African American history, among other cultures, which together weave the story of America. And it really is disconcerting for me, and I'm sure all of you, when the president is saying that this heralded cultural institution of the Smithsonian, that people travel from all over the world to visit and learn about American culture, cannot be trusted. Well, fortunately, and not surprisingly, the Secretary Lonnie Bunch, an African American, came back with his response. Our work is driven by scholarship, accuracy, and an uncompromising commitment to tell the fullness of America's story. So that should give us some relief, but I think we've known by now that there's likely going to be some confusion to ensue. And it's really unfortunate because as America's 250th anniversary was such a tremendous opportunity for inclusiveness in the travel experience. I know we have Black Meetings in Tourism magazine here to talk about, and maybe I think you talked about it yesterday, America 250, Black America 250. You know, an effort devoted exclusively to the experiences of Black Americans in this country. So we really missed an opportunity here. But what is multicultural tourism? And I'm going over this because I know we have a lot of students in the room. What do we mean when we say multicultural tourism? There are so many facets to it. Are we talking about the cultural travelers who have those diverse ethnic and racial backgrounds? Are we talking about the African American travelers who visit our destinations, the Hispanics, the Asian Americans? Yes, those are multicultural travelers. But at the same time, we're also promoting what makes our destinations multicultural and delving into those communities and supporting those communities, the Haitian community, the Wynwood community, the Overtown community here in Miami, so that they can maintain their culture and become sustainable. So it's a very important tool. It's an economic development tool because we're not only encouraging more travelers to visit, but we're preserving what it is that's making our culture so unique. We're preserving the way of life. We're preserving the economic means, the foodways, the crafts, the arts that make these individual cultures so special and are the driver of visitation. So you can see how this is an economic loop, that we have to support the multicultural tourisms in our destinations, and by doing so, we are preserving, we're sustaining what makes America, America, and those reasons that travelers want to visit. Just having a Now, why are we concerned about this segment of the population? Well, look at the population growth that we've experienced over just 10 years. Hispanics, 34% of the population. Asian Americans, 31% of the population. African Americans, 14% growth. These are actually percentages of growth, percentage change over this 10-year period of time. So we need to be responding to those changes. And not all destinations are. And apparently the Trump administration, while I don't want to be political, it's been clear that there isn't an interest in responding in kind by promoting and preserving the cultures of these people, these Americans. Now, let's talk about spend. Here's the real economic impact. As you probably have heard throughout the conference, the African American traveler is about 13% of the US travel market, spending about $145 billion. They are taking 184 million trips annually. The Hispanic market, 13% of all leisure travelers, spending $114 billion. Asian Americans, only about 6 or 7% of the population, spending almost $83 billion. And then we also look at the LGBTQ plus community. When we talk about multicultural tourism, they spend about $63 billion annually. Travelers with disabilities, a growing group, now 1 in 4 US adults, spend annually $50 billion. But what's changed in destination management? What are some of these changes that we've seen over these 10 years I've been talking about? Well, we're less likely to talk now about promotion. Let's promote our destination. Let's promote our attraction. We talk instead about stewardship. Has anyone heard that? Has anyone heard about stewardship? Any of the students here? I'd love to get a student response. Have any of the students heard about destination stewardship? Well, we need to talk more about it then, obviously. This is the concept that we are, just as I was referring to, we're preserving the communities. We're engaging the communities. We're caring for the destination so that it is there for future destinations. If we are not stewards of the destination, then we lose the culture. And we lose all those individual cultures that make up this melting pot of America. So sometimes you'll see in your communities, there are people working on preservation and people working on tourism, but they really should be talking to each other. They often are not. So as each of you go into your communities and work on tourism, whether you're working for a hotel or you work for the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, let's get the preservation people and the destination management people together, because stewardship, protecting it all, is very important. We'll also talk about partnership. Instead of marketing now, we talk more about partnership. So on the left, those are the earlier terms that were used frequently. On the right, in bold, are the terms that are now becoming more common in the vernacular. So partnerships are very key because we want to engage the community. What's the benefit of engaging the community when you're developing tourism? Can I get a student to answer? Brownie points, yes. People will come out to the area? Yep. And then when the community is engaged, what else might happen? Yeah, they generate more money. They might be employed in the tourism. They might be selling their own crafts, promoting their own restaurants. So engaging the community, making them feel like this is about us and we are part of this and we are invested, is very important. How about authentic experiences? For those of us who've been in the industry a long time, we've heard a lot about authentic experiences. I'm not sure if students have heard that much about it. What do you think authentic experiences mean? Another student for brownie points? Yeah. That's perfect. An experience that's true to that destination. They want to visit, as she said, they want to visit that destination. What is unique? What can we see there that we can't see anywhere else? They don't want to go to a community and see the Miami McDonald's. They want to see what is in Miami that I can't see anywhere else around the country. And then we talk a lot about visitor value. This has really changed in terms of just looking at volume of visitors. We're interested in bringing the visitors that value our communities, that value what it is we have to offer. And I'm going to show you later some data on U.S. leisure travelers that value the African American experience. And that is a very important driver of travel and destination choice. So this shift to including the community really often reaches out into stakeholder output. And again, no matter where you end up working, I know we have a lot of students here, it's a hotel, it's a museum, it's a restaurant even, to get input from that community you're serving can really enhance the business. Ensure that you are providing that authentic experience and that everyone feels they're a part of it. Now, as some of my colleagues here who've been in the industry a long time, you'll realize there wasn't always a concern about multicultural travelers over the years. Well, why did we start caring about multicultural travelers? Well, 2008, there was a big crash, the real estate crash of 2008. And at that time, I was a consultant with a big hotel chain. And the traditional travel market, which was their predominantly white business travelers, which was the driver of most of their revenue, went away during this huge economic crash. And there was then the search for other markets. Well, who else can we sell our hotel rooms to? And they'd never before looked at the African American market, the Hispanic market, the Asian American market. They've never looked at that as a targeted group. And being in the industry for as long as I was and having a social justice background, I said, you have been ignoring a $50 billion industry. This was back in 2009. And now they are important to you because you've lost your traditional market. Well, no matter how we ended up getting there, they finally did realize that this was a market to be reckoned with. And as you saw earlier, it's a $148 billion market. So we did the first study of African American travelers. We've done several. And then we did a study of all travelers, all leisure travelers, a representative survey. And we asked everyone, how important is it that a destination has African American culture when you're choosing to travel? How important is that? Because I wanted to demonstrate that African American culture and other cultures are important to a much wider audience than just that ethnic or racial group that it pertains to. I knew cultural travel was widespread, had a lot of interest, but we didn't have any data to demonstrate it. So finally, we had a study that said 55% of all leisure travelers say that the availability of African American culture within a destination is important to their destination choice. 36% of those said it was very important. That's a huge number in this kind of research. 19% said it's important, another significant number. And then 17% said somewhat important. So I like to focus on varying very important. And that's 55%. That is hugely significant. And then we were able to show that as travelers became aware of the cultural assets that were available to them, they were more likely to go, to go there. So raising awareness through your promotional campaigns, news articles, I have to think of Black Meetings in Tourism magazine as a great way to advertise, getting the word out there, that the more you get the word out there, the more people are aware, the more will want to visit. And this shows that African American travelers, 51%, do care more about African American assets and when they're making decisions. But as I pointed out earlier, 55% of the entire travel population cares as well and is important to them. Gen Z, younger generation, 41%, also find this important when they're choosing a destination. Then here's another very important, I think, impressive statistic. 23% of all those US leisure travelers say that learning more about the African American experience is one that would motivate me to travel. Now, I have to tell you, this study was conducted during the when Black Lives Matter had a lot of visibility and was doing a lot of things in the media and was getting good PR, sometimes not good PR, but there was a lot of awareness that Black Lives Matter. And we see it in this data, with 23% strongly agreeing that learning more about this experience would motivate me to travel. Do you know why? Because we've now, Black Lives Matter raised awareness that here is a culture, here is a history that we don't know a lot about. I did a study for the Gullah Geechee in the Gullah Geechee corridor down in the south, and rice farming was critical and built a large part of the south. And people don't know about rice farming. They don't know that slaves, the enslaved from West Africa, established the rice market in the southeast. So by raising these stories, telling the stories, we're educating our fellow Americans about African American culture. And through understanding, where do we end up with more understanding? Well, when someone understands another culture, understands another people, there's much more what I call cultural diplomacy. There's more agreement, there's more collaboration. And again, understanding can get us so far in improving our relations and living together. Another interesting thing is that nearly a quarter of all these travelers will go out of their way to experience African American culture and history. 23% say they're more likely to travel in order to learn about this culture. 24% say they are willing to go off the beaten path, which gives us a lot of support for our civil rights trails and other efforts to take these travelers perhaps out of their way to find those unique locations, those unique points of African American history. And then when we were also able to discover the African American enthusiasts. These are people who really seek out the African American experience. And as PJ was referring to, if you're not out there marketing, they can't find you. This tells you that these travelers are out there on Google They're doing online travel agencies. They're at destination websites. You've got to be out there so they can find you because they're online looking for you. They're also better educated and have higher incomes. So if you're seeking out people who are interested in African American culture and heritage, you're attracting a very affluent group that's more likely to stay longer and spend more money. And if you have a hotel, if you have a destination or a restaurant, these are the people you want coming through your doors. They're pretty evenly divided, male and female. But what are the downsides to traveling if you're African American? Well, one of our first studies found that 50% found that racial profiling was a reason they didn't want to travel, which is almost as much as people not wanting to travel because of hassles at the airport. So racial profiling is still something not to be overlooked. And this study was a while back, but I can only imagine what it is today, given all of ICE's publicity and negative behaviors. So we divided up the sample among African American travelers, and we found about 22% of the total sample are cultural travelers specifically. It says 2% there, it should say 22%. Family reunion travelers are another 22% of the African American travel market, and 36% are business travelers. They also travel overseas. So African Americans are a tremendous target for our overseas partners who are trying to, attract this lucrative market. And I see PJ coming up close to the podium. Am I running out of time as usual? This is the Gullah Geechee corridor I was talking about. It stretches from Wilmington, North Carolina, down to St. Augustine, Florida. It is where most of the enslaved from West Africa had landed and worked in the rice plantations there. So with that, I will entertain any questions. I'm available for questions and discussion after this. I'll be here all day and all night and would welcome a conversation. I do have more slides that I'll just get back to my contact information, and we'll leave that with you. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mandala. You are on the next panel, so stay with us. The next panel is the Executive Tourism Forum, and it's sponsored by the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism. It's a discussion on marketing tourism and the impact to the destination. We are live on Facebook as well as YouTube. You can invite your partners that are elsewhere to check us out on NABHOOD YouTube. And of course, our president, PJ Douglas Sands' Facebook. It's also live. This next session talks about leading destinations that will provide updates on where the industry and organizations are heading for 2027 and beyond, and what changes we can expect. Industry executives will share their insight on the growth of domestic and international tourism markets and what impact trends are playing in changing the community and how to access these opportunities. The moderator will be Dr. Andy Ingraham, founder, president, and CEO of NABHOOD. And on the panel, We have the Honorable Randy Rolle, Member of Parliament and Parliamentary Secretary for the Ministry of Tourism in the Bahamas, along with Laura J. Mandala, Managing Director of Mandala Research, LLC. They're joined by Solomon Herbert, Publisher and Editor-in-Chief of Black Meetings and Tourism magazine. Please welcome them as they enter the stage.
Take the third seat. Thank you. Good morning once again. Wilford, good morning. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Now that we have Wilford's attention. So, destinations, tourism, the lifeblood of our industry. Everybody saw what happened with World Cup. Unfortunately, the numbers weren't as great as we projected. World Cup Organizing Committee gave back over 10,000 rooms. For us that thought, destinations would do well, the good thing is that international visitors didn't come in the numbers we anticipate, but domestic travelers did go to watch soccer. So you're seeing a revolution from a sport worldwide that's great in America, is happening and evolving every day. But I'm going to have each panel reintroduce themselves, or introduce themselves. In the case of Laura, she'll reintroduce herself. And I'm going to start left, my mentor, my personal friend, Saul Herbert. Saul?
Yes, my name is Solomon Herbert. I'm the publisher and editor-in-chief of Black Meetings and Tourism magazine, a publication which is a trade magazine for the travel and hospitality industry, which we embarked on in 1993. So it's almost 34 years.
Saul is too modest. He's not the publisher of Black Meetings and Tourism. He's the granddaddy of many of us that started in the industry when publications wouldn't carry stories and people like us. The very first time and the very first person to be on Meetings magazine was John Crump from the National Coalition of Black Meeting Planners. I still have that copy in my office today. So he carried the water for us all through the industry. When I first started, he was one of the first people I met. And most of us in this industry can attribute our career, our coverage to what Black Meetings and Tourism have done. So Saul, thank you very much publicly. And by the way, Saul is not the real boss. The associate publisher is Gloria Herbert. She's the real boss. He just acts like he's the boss. Gloria, please, thank you very much. That's his lovely wife. Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura Mandala. I've had up Mandala Research for almost 3 decades now, doing travel and tourism research. Started off with Marriott International, working across all their brands and developing their first global brand equity and brand tracking study. And then worked with the U.S. Travel Association as a VP of research before continuing my work with Mandala Research in order to address some of the unanswered questions in tourism, which is why we developed studies like the African American tourist, Hispanic travelers, sustainable travel, travelers with disabilities, and so on. So we find a real passion in trying to solve some of those challenges in the industry.
And Laura is one of the first companies that started working with us to do studies on Black travel to see what sort of impact we were having from a destination standpoint. People don't realize that the #1 industry in the world is travel, second only to healthcare in the United States. And so for us, particularly for us in the Caribbean and specifically the Bahamas, it's really our lifeblood and the way that we have to treat travelers in order to get them to come back, and more important, have something for them to do. And we've done a great job so far, which brings me to my next panelist, my good friend.
Good morning, Randy Rolle, Parliamentary Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Bahamas. Been in the industry a little under 30 years, in and out. I started off from a summer student and somehow ended up here today.
You start up as a student, so there's hope for all these students here. You see where you can be, there you go. Randy, what exactly does a parliamentary secretary do in the Ministry of Tourism? I've been asked to make sure that you explain that.
Okay, no problem. Parliamentary Secretary is there. It's a position to assist and work closely with the minister, the substantial minister. So it's a junior minister that has responsibility over mostly the same things, or you can be given a separate portfolio. In our case, we have a number of other departments that comes under us. You have Bahamas there that's here. You have the Gaming Board of the Bahamas. You have the Hotel Corporation. And so a number of other areas all fall under that umbrella. So it's sometimes too much for one person to do. And so a parliamentary secretary is simply someone who assists and works along with the minister to carry out the policy of the government.
So bringing all those various parts together.
Correct.
Laura, destination-wise, what do you see if you had a crystal ball looking into the future? How are destinations doing in terms of their marketing imagery, and are they hitting the mark? Are they attracting the visitors, or can they do a better job?
Well, it's so varied, Andy, and right now people are trying to figure out where AI is going to figure into all of their marketing. But as you know, destinations are extremely diligent in trying to understand the traveler and using all the tools available to them. Some of the nomenclature has changed because when we're going after the African American or we're going after multicultural markets, people feel like they have to perhaps revise how they're talking about this and maybe talk about inclusive travel rather than anything that might resemble or be interpreted as DEI. So there's been a lot of retooling, revamping, but 5 years is going to be very interesting. I'm confident everyone's going to figure it out, but I am just hoping we don't miss out on all of the economic opportunity that lies within the multicultural markets, both developing our own multicultural communities for promotion, because that's what makes us great, and attracting those multicultural visitors that are higher spenders and stay longer. So it's an attractive market. And I hope political trends don't impede us from addressing that market.
Is the multicultural market still the fastest growing segment of the industry?
Well, it is by the nature of the population growth. I think I showed you in my presentation, the population growth among multicultural segments has been dramatic and far outpacing that of non-multicultural travelers. So yes, the nature of the visitor is going to change. And I just spoke with a major hotel chain yesterday who said they want their front desks, they want their staff, they want their corporate employees to mirror the travelers that they're going to be seeing. So this is not only good for multicultural travel, but for multicultural individuals in our society looking for jobs in this industry.
So I'm going to ask you to reflect back on the industry And I'm going to ask Randy, after you get through, to him to look forward in the industry to see where it's going. I mean, when we started, and I remember the first time I went to the National Coalition of Black Meeting Planners, I wanted to meet everybody, and I tried to figure it out. And if you remember well, I volunteered to be the bartender. When we were much younger, we knew everybody would come to the bar, and I'd get to meet them and mix a drink, even though I couldn't mix a drink. But if you look back and kind of give us where we were then and where we are now, I'm going to ask Randy to then look forward to see how ideas that he would bring to the table can change destinations, what do you see for the future?
Well, a perfect example of where the industry has come from. When we started our publication, Miami, if you know the history of the hospitality industry, was not very welcoming to African Americans. A young man came to the head of to run the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Bill Talbert, and he changed all that. He supported the African American market segment. He was willing to invest some money into the market segment. And over the years, the 30 years or so since then, they brought on board people like Connie Kennard, who's the vice president of Black Female, Carol Motley, who's also a Black female vice president. And when Bill retired, David Whitaker took over for him. And when David came to me, because of all the support they've given us over the years, and suggested that the idea that we do something on the cover featuring Connie Kennard and Carol Motley called Miami Spice, I jumped at the chance. And they were actually on the cover of our March-April issue. So it shows how things can be turned around and develop into, it depends on who's in leadership positions. People who are interested in the market, see the value of the market, and wanted to invest in the market, and not just talk about it, but put their dollars where their words are, made a big difference. And so, and that's the kind of relationship we try and have with all of our advertisers, which are very few. I've often said this, that the hospitality industry is not very hospitable to African Americans. And even to this day, it's not what it should be. But anyway, that's for another panel.
Another panel, but so you mentioned something important. Bill Talbot and David Whitaker, having relationships are really, really important. And we obviously were very important. Yeah,
it's all about relationships. If you get to know people, if they get to know you and they know what you have to offer, and you come to them not just with your hand out looking for business, but also offering them editorial and a presence in the magazine and a presence in the media, it's what works. If it's just a one-sided event or one-sided relationship, it doesn't work out very successfully. And in our instance, we get less than 4% of all destinations to advertise with us. Now I'm not saying that we're the only way for them to reach this market, but we are the only trade publication. We're the only national trade publication that addresses this market and the concerns of this market. And we're not getting the kind of support we should, but we're not doing it. I mean, obviously we're in business, so we want to make money, but that's not the reason why we started the magazine. That's not the reason why we're in business. It's just for the, for the profit. We're here to support, acknowledge, and report on the contributions of African Americans and other people of color in this industry.
And by the way, footnote, the reason why we're in Miami today and have been here for the last couple of years is because of that relationship with Bill Talbot and particularly David Whitaker. Many years ago, I brought the American Black Film Festival to Miami. I think that was in 2008. They've been here ever since. We brought Revolt to Miami. And this year, you'll hear from a young man from PAC. We're bringing PAC, which is a number of conferences, but I mention those because they're some of the largest events. For example, at Revolt, in one weekend, we spent $2.6 million just leaving the city. Randy, Saul talked about relationship. You and I have had a long-term relationship as friends and colleagues. You've ascended into a position of, I want to say, power. You'll probably have some authority over people like Stephen Johnson and Anita Johnson. I don't know why you have two of the same family members working in the tourist office, but they're both good friends of mine. But when you look at the future, what Saul just mentioned, Bahamas being a very progressive destination, what do you see us going if you had to look into your crystal ball like Laura did?
Well, again, you guys, it's interesting you would say it. To me, it's all about relationships. It's something that extends. People go with what they trust. We're in the age now where, Bahamas, we would always promote sun, sand, and sea. But as we know, you can even find that in Dubai now. And so it has to extend. It has to be something more. And I believe that once you establish those relationships, people trust you, they tend to lean more on you, and it continues to grow. Case in point, even with our national airline who's here today, Bahamas Air. Bahamas Air, like every other airline, has had its challenges, but you know what you're going to get. With Bahamas Air, you're going to get safe, reliable service, and that is what people are interested in. And so, once you build on that, certainly the only way to go is up. For the Bahamas, I think another important point for us is product development. And so, because you have so much competition out there, you got to continue to work and build on the product. And so, we've taken the cause that we're going to do some revitalization. We're going to upgrade some things. We're going to make sure that what you're accustomed to, you have, because people buy what they know. And so culture, and I heard it talk this morning, is extremely important. We're unique people. I believe, and it's my estimation, that the Bahamas is the best little island in the world, And so people are going to come for that. We appreciate that, and we're going to continue to show them that we appreciate it. So definitely relationships is the way for the future.
So, there's a QR code up on the screen. If you want to come to the Bahamas, Ms. Chambers will be irritated at me if I don't make that plug, but because the PALSEX talked about the Bahamas, there's a QR code that's flashing on screen. There it is. Enter for a chance to win a trip to the Family Islands. I was born in the Family Islands, so Bahamas Air, the national flag carrier. Do you guys work very closely in the Ministry of Tourism with Bahamas Air?
Well, we're one. Like I told you, Bahamas Air comes under the banner of Ministry of Tourism as well. And so I get the opportunity to boss Wilfred around a little bit and make sure that we're on the same page. But, those guys work hard. We appreciate them. Like I said, they're a national flag carrier, and I wouldn't fly nobody else.
I got to tell you, Saul, give Wilfred a hand. Saul mentioned partnership, but I've got to tell you that my relationship with Bahamas Air and some of the other carriers that we've worked with, Bahamas Air has been a really great partner. I introduced Wilfred to Dion Curry from PAC. You'll hear from him a little bit later on today. Dion represents about 3,000 athletes, both active and retired. And we're looking at the Bahamas as a destination next year. We tried this year, but this year we'll be in Miami. But again, the beauty about business is all revolving. Laura, as you look at many destinations, is there any one destination or few destinations, I don't want you to name their names, that stand out in terms of being progressive in what they're doing?
Bahamas, Bahamas, Bahamas.
Miami.
Miami. Is that leadership?
Miami has it all. I mean, they were the first, to hire Connie and have a VP of multicultural tourism. They are out in the communities. They're not just about promoting tourism. They're about developing tourism, developing the product, helping the communities to be sustainable, understanding what they need so that when you bring a tour bus through or you invite tourists, they're going to have a good experience, because we can't be promoting Overtown and Little Haiti and the neighborhoods if the neighborhoods aren't ready. Okay. And
ready.
and Miami understands that they have a role in getting them tourism ready, and very few destinations have the resources to do that and the commitment.
Yeah, Miami collects a lot of bed taxes. And you're right. I used to be on the advisory board for the Black Tourism Initiative. And I remember when we were formed, they didn't have a division that looked at African American multicultural. And I remember my committee saying, we're going to lose our job, but the one thing we're not going to do is sit here every day and talk about multicultural tourism. And we made a specific, diligent effort to say to the city, and so remember, we met Connie when she was a student. Gloria, I remember that when she first started in Kentucky. And one of the motions that I made, I didn't want a multicultural, I wanted an African American in that position. And we also made another request. We wanted an African American agency to do the search. And I tell people all the time, don't be afraid to make sure that you put your views. Listen, I'm a little shy guy at times, but Dr. Cargo, please don't do that and embarrass me in front of my friends. But I think if Saul and Gloria can take that position, and I hope my new friend, not my new friend, my old friend, new to being POW secretary, will push the destination to do some of those productive things. You think you'll be able to do that, POW sec?
Listen, the key is once you're surrounded by good people, everything is possible. And so I'm also encouraged when I look around at your conference here, I see so many young Bahamian students who have taken the approach to come here, work with you, work on the side of someone who's been in the industry, understands it. And so hats off to you. I believe that the future is bright because you have so many young up and coming persons, and then they're leaders whose shoulders we stand on. And so they have good shoulders to stand on. My good friend Eddie Wan there too, who is in Hotel Corp. He's a leader in his own right as well too. And so look at Bahamas Airtable and that leadership that's grow. They can connect with those. And so, yeah, man, I mean, future's bright.
And that's what we need. I represent a team of people. I really work for my daughter, who I argue with every day, every morning, every night.
She's the best.
But because she's the boss. I mean, she bosses me around, and my cousin Felicity, and my son. But make a commitment to give some of these young people and that we have here that's from the Bahamas, Akil, great student. We want to do better. So when we talk about this, and Gloria knows that we've got to be persistent, I guess is the word. And you and I look at the industry and see all the changes. What else can we do? You and I talked about the hotels that don't advertise in your magazine. And by the way, it's called The Bible of Black Tourism. What do we need to do? Give us a charge order.
Well, I think, it starts at the top. If you go on the internet and look at the staff of the various convention and visitors bureaus or DMOs, For instance, if you look at Elliot Ferguson's Destination DC, it's a rainbow of folks in managerial positions. Looks like the multicultural, ideal. If you go to most destinations, and I'm not going to mention any others, but if you look at their staff, you don't see any people of color, or you see very few in minor positions, not in leadership positions. There are about 700 or more than 700 DMOs in the U.S., and only 12 or 13 of them are headed by African Americans. So that gives you an idea of, what's needed. We need to hire more African Americans and people of color in leadership positions throughout the industry. And when you do that, you're going to get a more sensitivity to the multicultural market, and you're going to see more hires. You're going to see more development of culture and things of that nature that people who are not from our community just don't understand.
Again, Elliot started with us, but I thought you were trying to help Brandon plug the fact that Elliot is a Bahamian, which we appreciate. But Elliot became the first person of color, first African American to sit on Brand USA's board. And you think about it, Brand USA is the Ministry of Tourism of the United States, by virtue of Congress, which funds 50% of it, and private sector from the industry funds the others 50%. And they've done a wonderful job. So I thought you was trying to tell Randy that because he's now at the top, he needs to make a lot of changes. And Dr. Cargill at Bahamas, I hope they advertise with Black Means in Tourism. I didn't say that, but anyhow, Randy, we're running out of time. So I want you and Laura and Saul to give your final comments in terms of what do you think, what we need to do, and set a charge record, a charge request. Where are we going?
All right. Well, again, the only way to go is up. And so, like we said earlier, relationships, partnerships, you can't do it alone. The more you strategically plan and you set your vision, just go after it. Certainly, that is where the world is going. Yeah, we have AI, but nothing beats that one-on-one. Nothing beats those relationships. Those are powerful, and we need to continue to just push on those. And for the Bahamas, we're going to continue to push on the product. We're going to develop the product, and we're going to improve where we can. Again, Bahamas Air is here, and to me, that's the best airline in the world as well too. And so, we're going to have to support each other. That's what we're going to do.
Laura, very quickly, just about out of time.
Well, I think it's very important to note that on this stage, we have two of the key players in having moved multicultural tourism, moving inclusiveness and diversity and leadership forward. Because in all of my studies, and I look a lot at women in leadership, and there's a lot of parallels here. We don't have many women in leadership roles either. What Andy's doing is going to the schools and saying, we need the pipeline. We need to foster the pipeline. That's exactly what's needed. How do we have more people that we can recruit from if they're not coming from the schools? So Andy's got that covered. And then Saul and Gloria have taken this tool to promote the African Americans who are making it in this business. And awareness, as I said earlier, people can't act without being aware of an issue or a scenario or a situation. He's making everyone aware of what African Americans are doing in this industry. And if people can't get promoted if nobody's aware of you. So what this publication is critical. And I just want to add a caveat to my earlier comment about Miami being such a great example of implementing and promoting and preserving multicultural tourism. because I didn't mention the Bahamas only because I haven't been invited to the Bahamas to evaluate
Shame on
what
you,
they're
Andy.
doing.
Shame on
So you may want to talk to your predecessors about that. But I've been studying African American travel for 20 years, so I think I could help you with the African American market.
Chicago.
So we're out of time real quickly.
Well, I would just say that we need more people like Andy and Laura in this industry to help push the multicultural agenda. And also Gloria, my beautiful wife and partner in the magazine, also has an initiative that she's primarily behind called Black America 250, which, you know, at a time when they're trying to erase our history from the highest levels of government, she's got an initiative that's promoting all the things that we've contributed to America in the last 250 years.
Thank you. One closing comments. Please go to the QR code for Bahamas there if you want to win a trip to the Family Islands. Scan it. Everybody has an opportunity to win. Please join me in thanking the panelists this morning. Great job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you to the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism for sponsoring that panel, the Executive Tourism Forum, a discussion on marketing tourism and the impact to the destination. Our next panel is about to begin. Please, if you haven't done so as yet, take a moment to scan that QR code for your opportunity to travel to the Family Islands in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Our next,
Laura, you left your pen.
if you wish to grab some coffee, you can step outside for a few minutes. There's a networking break sponsored by PepsiCo. So in about 5 minutes, we'll be back with the next panel, sponsored by Bahamas Air. And that panel will cover destinations attracting meetings, incentives, conventions, and events. You don't want to miss it.
I'll pick here. All right. 3 gentlemen and a lady.
Ladies and gentlemen, take your seats as we are about to begin our next panel. This is sponsored by Bahamas Air. The topic is destinations, attracting meetings, incentives, conventions, and events. You heard Ms. P.J. Douglas Sands earlier talk about mice and Smurf. You'll learn more about that. Of course, she is the president of the International Multicultural and Heritage Tourism Network. PJ, congratulations on 13 years. She's also the president of Travel, Tourism, and Hospitality Certified AI Strategist and the DS3 group of companies. She is joined on the panel today by Mr. Wilfred Mullings, Deputy Director of Sales and Marketing for Bahamas Air, Stephen Johnson, Director of Smurf Markets and Tourism Development Corporation, and Dion Curry, Director of Business Development for the Pro Athletic Community, PAC. Please welcome them.
Yeah. All right. Well, today we're talking about mice and Smurf. So I will define mice. That's meetings, incentives, conferences, or conventions, exhibits, or events. Smurf is social, military, educational, religious, and fraternal groups. So those are the acronyms that we often see, which are the most powerful economic drivers in the travel community. So a convention, fraternity gathering, sports event, reunion, an incentive program, a music festival, would all faith-based gatherings would all be considered part of that. We're talking about framing the conversation on that U.S. Black travel market that we've been talking about, with over $140 billion estimated now. And interesting statistic, the Events Industry Council in Oxford Economics reported that business events, not leisure travel, generate $1.3 trillion in direct spending in 2025 alone. So you're talking about the leisure market, which is 140 billion, but business travel, 1.3 trillion. So let's move forward with Dion. You are the Director of Business Development for Pro Athlete Community, PAC, and we're so excited to have you here. We mentioned that I went to Phoenix in March and had a great time at the Pros and CEOs golf tournament. Yes, I golf. Dion, introduce yourself and tell us about PAC, describe your community and your own journey that led to this.
Sure. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me. Thank you for being here. This is a beautiful city of Miami, and for you to have those beautiful beaches outside, but to be in here to connect and learn, that really goes a long way. But for myself specifically, Dion Curry played football and basketball at Michigan State University, had an opportunity to have a chance at the NFL and got injured before it ever got started, right? And so I quickly transitioned into my next phase of career, which was leading hospitality business in Vegas for 3 years at a couple of different resorts, and transitioned then into college basketball coaching for 7 years before co-founding a construction company, and then PAC. I have a journey in sport. My father played in NBA for 13 years. I've connected with so many humans that have had, that stigma associated to what a pro athlete is and their transition out of the sport and what's next. And so with PAC, I get to be a part of that solution. Many athletes are transitioning into great careers. They're investing, they're building businesses, they're becoming brands, they're infecting their communities in so many different ways. And so at PAC, we represent just under 3,000 athletes figuring out that next phase of life. So delivering opportunities and education and networking, meaningful connections that help to progress what they're building in life. And so at PAC, we get an opportunity to connect with a lot of those athletes. There's over 770,000 professional athletes worldwide. And so when you think about the communities and the impact that they have, it goes far beyond, what you would imagine.
Thank you for that, Dion. So I'm moving on to you, Mr. Johnson. You are on the other side of the coin there. Tell us about your organization and what you do relative to Mice and Smurf.
Thank you, everybody. Good to be here. I thank Andy and PJ for the invitation. And my job, I'm the director of the Tourism Development Corporation, which deals with entrepreneurship. I'm based in Grand Bahama, but more so the one that's bringing in the millions of dollars to the economy is the Smurf market. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. But when I came to the Smurf market, people were looking at me and they're saying, man, you got to be crazy. This ain't ever going to be nothing, amount to nothing. And, Woody, you remember we did some work with that, with the chamber and all the other. But I tell you, this now is one of the fastest growing areas in tourism. My colleague, Janet Cuffey out of Canada, who has the MICE side of it, that's a meetings, incentive, conferences, and exhibition. And the Smurf, we did in 2025, we did about $81 million, and I'd say 90% of that was in Nassau. And so this is, for the Bahamas alone, this is a $500 million market. By the next 5 to 10 years, this is going to be $1 billion market for the Bahamas. And so we're major players, not just in the Bahamas, but in the world now. And so we're excited to tell you a little bit more about all the fraternities and sororities and all the other stuff that we're involved in, and all of the other acronyms and opportunities for you, those of you that want to get into it. I know I spoke to a few of you, but if you're a hotel and you don't have a Smurf person on your team, you're missing the boat, or any organization in the convention market. And so it's a pleasure to be here. I was in Toronto. I started out in Canada long years ago, and came back into Grand Bahama with the Tourism Development Co-op and the Smurf market. And so it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilfred, Deputy Director of Sales and Marketing at Bahamas Air, getting us there.
Good morning. And once again, thank you for having us here at this awesome summit. And we look forward to continuing the relationship that we started. But my name is Wilfred Mullings, as PJ mentioned, Deputy Director for Sales and Marketing at Bahamas Air. I've been with Bahamas Air consecutively for the past 29 years, and I've seen myself growing to the position that I am right now. I'm also happy to, when I have an opportunity like this and whenever he's around, always like to give kudos to my mentor, Woody Wilson, because during my flight attendant days, he pulled me on the side. I spoke to him, hey, I would really like to get into the sales and marketing thing, and now I'm doing his job. So, but here at Bahamas Air, the sales and marketing department we're responsible, we're the drivers of the airline. We ensure that butts are in seats. We go out there and meet the players in the markets. And one of the things that we also is committed to is forging relationships with our various partners and in the industry, to the trade and travel industry. And sitting here on my left right now, Mr. Stephen Johnson with the Ministry of Tourism, who's our greatest partner in the Bahamas, where we work closely with them to ensure that we meet our marks, whatever destinations we are planning on going into. We always collaborate with the Ministry of Tourism. So the sales and marketing department, as I mentioned, the heartbeat of Bahamas Air, and we are ensuring we are the persons, that team sitting right there at the table. We are ensuring that butts are in seats on a regular basis, year round. And again, I'm happy to be here, PJ. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So, Wilfred, a destination can have great hotels, great exciting events happening. How does the average planner, tourism partner organization involve an airline when developing their group travel experience?
So the first thing, you have to make contact. Making that initial contact with the airline, and in this case, Bahamas Air. We have designated groups and charter areas who can deal with the various um, um, mice groups, the Smurf groups coming over to the Bahamas. Once you forge that relationship, like I said, we have designated areas for it now. You make contact with Bahamas Air, and I would advise if you're gonna plan for your groups, especially the groups of the big numbers, a year in advance helps us a whole lot because Bahamas Air, we know what it's come. Once we know what is coming, we can plan for it, we can cultivate it to suit any client's need. And so that first initial contact with our groups department, with our charter department, or our sales executives who are most likely to be the persons to get those calls, and then it's trickulated down to the various areas of our department. So making that initial contact as early as possible to ensure that your travel arrangements are made in a timely manner.
Thank you for that. And I would say once we've identified the destination or we're thinking about destinations, that's when we reach out to you, Stephen, as the planner in real time.
Absolutely. And for me, what you got to understand too is that for the Smurf or the mice, you're not going to get that business right away. This is business. I just came back from Sigma Gamma Rho Boule conference in Tampa. 5,000 Soros. That group is coming to the Bahamas next year. We won't have 5,000, but we'll have 1,000 of their international. We signed that contract last year. And I said to the Deputy Prime Minister when he was a Minister of Tourism, I said, I want to come back on commission. He said, why is that? I said, I don't need to be on salary because all these groups I'm bringing in, I would be a millionaire off of 3 or 4 groups, no doubt. Because we brought in a lot of groups. And I wish I would come back on commission. But I'll be talking to Palsec about that later on. But listen,
Me too.
we everything that we do as far as groups coming in, we consult with Bahamas Air because this is an opportunity for them for charters. So we've been working with Woody and Wilfred. We bring them to the table right away. Sigma Gamma Rho, we've been working on that for about 3 years. So again, we have 1,000 people coming in. I was out there. We did junk canoe. They didn't know for 3 years. They didn't know that the Bahamas was going to be the destination for next year. And so we ran up. We did the welcome. Junk canoe came out of Miami, and it was just amazing to see the ladies getting up in their colors and dancing and shaking. But we've got some really significant groups coming in. I mean, we had Randy Rolle is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. He's in the wrong fraternity, but we got his fraternity, and people like Randy. On a serious note, we were able to pull the Kappas in. I've been working on that for the last 2-3 years. Kappa Alpha Psi. We brought in about 800 registered Kappas. Now, here's the thing with this: 800 registered Kappas. They brought in times that by 2, and then times that by Grandma coming in, Little Johnny coming in. So we had about 4,000 Kappas running around Nassau in various different hotels. Some of them don't want to register. Now, what we're not doing is going after the broke undergraduates because we have to pay for them in school, right? As a target, we're going after the alumni, persons that have the money, disposal incomes of 200, 300,000. That's who we're targeting. We got another organization coming in next year. We got girlfriends. I'm giving y'all some opportunities. Those of you who came to me and wanted to look at, there's thousands of opportunities that they're targeted, right? So girlfriends is coming into Nassau next year. 1,500 girlfriends, times that by 2. They're bringing the husbands and the significant others, right? Right? And then again, times that by another 2. So we're going to have all the hotels in Nassau are going to be full. And think about the effects of this. Everybody coming in is paying $29 departure tax. The taxi cab drivers are paying. To get to Atlantis from Nassau International Airport is $50, right? So think about that. Think about heads and beds, room and board. Think about all that stuff, food and beverage, activities, tours. And we're also selling pre and post tours, whether you can go into the Out Islands or into Grand Bahama. We put that on their site. So this is where Kerry Fountain comes in for the Out Island promotion board. We have offers where if you book 2 nights or more, you can perhaps get your free airfare. So there's so much opportunities that we have in this group segment. I got business on the books right now for 2027 is going to be a strong year for me.
I can imagine.
It's going to be amazing. I got the Kiwanis coming in. I got girlfriends coming in. We got, who else is coming in? Like 2028 and 2029 groups that are already on the books. Remember now, this is 3 years to build an average group, or sometimes you're lucky if you snag something for a year, right?
And Stephen, I think that's important, right? Because what you're talking about from an economist standpoint is called the multiplier effect. When you book, yes, they go, oh, this is a small group, 700, but all of those additional tertiary travelers bring income. The more experiences you can do pre, during, and post, that money spreads around your economy, which is the goal to keep it there. So I'm going to pivot a little bit because you talked about the different types of groups that come in. And when you have a group like PAC, for instance, there are so many components to the average client, whether it is a small executive board retreat, whether it is a regional event that they're doing to target people who live near a destination, or even a conference. So Dion, when you're looking on your side, what are you looking for when you're out there sourcing a destination? You came to the Bahamas, evaluated that. You're now decided to go to Miami this year. What are you all looking for in a destination specifically as you are trying to make it match your demographic?
Yeah, I think for us specifically, we have members that are very broad in what they're trying to build, right? And the communities that they're bringing to the table. And so there's influential people, there's investors, all of these things. And so we're trying to really just be with a group that wants to create meaningful experiences, right? The connection opportunities are really important. So most of that stuff happens on a golf course or in between of a programming or in a networking social. So we just want someone that really wants to see the vision of what we're trying to build for our members and understand that the experiences are going to be different across the board. So if you can really get to know the vision and what we're trying to build and create experiences based off of that, I think that's super important. For me as a kid, my father was a president of the NBA Players Association. So going to the Atlantis in the Bahamas for us as preteens, it was like a summer camp for us. We knew we were going to go back. It was going to be exciting. We knew because they forecasted what that experience was going to look like. And so we were super excited to get back and, get with our friends again this summer and go jet skiing and go snorkeling and do all those things. But they helped to paint that picture. And then those relationships that we built year after year, it brought more of us. First, it was my parents and my siblings, and then my grandparents joined the experience. And so anyone that can help to create different opportunities for connection is super important for us.
And it's interesting because when you talked about that when we first met, and I was like, oh, I was the meeting planner at Atlantis that hosted the NBA Players Association. Oh, for several years would have been our paths crossing. And also with regard to being a planner, I think it becomes so important because we are the commissionable ones, as opposed to you salaried ones, who then earn your commission on that. So we want to make sure that we are executing in every category. So Wilfred, I'm coming back to you. So when an airline, where does that role come in where you need you need a planner or to guide these groups in the right direction, who has experience and who understands the questions to ask? Do you see us as valuable resources to support a group or event that wants to fly Bahamas Air?
Definitely, and that's where again when I spoke about making initial contact, it's never the group, it's the meeting planner that always reaches out to us by saying, hey, we have 150 persons wanting to come to the Bahamas, and the conversation starts from there. So the role that the meeting planners play, it's very important. Hence, that's why again relationship and getting to know all the various players in the industry is so important. And the meeting planners, their role is vital to persons like me and Stephen, because again, they reach out and they ensure that, hey, we want this group. They interested in the Bahamas. What does Bahamas Air has to offer to ensure that they enjoy their stay, and not just coming flying to Nassau, but because one of the abilities that Bahamas Air have as the national flag carrier, we are the gateway throughout the entire Bahamas. And so once the conversation starts, we then tells you what is there for you to do. You can have 2 nights here in Nassau. You can fly over to Exumas. You can to swim at the beach. You can fly over to Eleuthera, visit Grand Bahama. You know, there's so much options in the Bahamas in regards to travel, because people only feel as though Nassau is the Bahamas, but New Providence is not the Bahamas. And the good thing about being the national flag carrier, we can take you to each one of those islands.
And that's so key, because as the planner, I'm the repeat customer. Whether I'm bringing a pack to the table, whether I'm bringing, like this year, I'm bringing Bahama Breeze Music Festival on August 13th to the 17th with Flowetry and Anthony Hamilton and a great cadre of things. And so when I'm having those relationships with you as my airline or the destination or the hotel, I'm the ideal customer, not even so much the client, right? Because you want me to come back with the next group and the next group.
Exactly.
And then when I'm talking to people like Stephen and we're talking about, okay, what does this experience look like? And we want to navigate that process. Stephen, and many times you have a group who says, hey, I have 30,000 members. You don't have enough airlift, quote unquote, to get into on this day and out on this day. How do you then reach out to those groups and say, well, what about your executive retreat? What about your regional conference? What about the 3,500 that may be in a chapter? How do you pivot that into make sure you still get the business as a destination based on those?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to lose the business. You know, we have Randy and myself, we're all members of the Masonic Lodge. And so we have the Shriners Convention that takes place. Actually, the Shriners Convention is going to be here second week in August. They will bring 25,000 Shriners into Tampa. And what they normally do is they normally come in for 2 years, right? So 25,000, remember now, you only need about 2,500 for the gentlemen for what we call Mecca. And that's when we dressed up in our paraphernalia. And for the ladies, we call our daughters, the sisters they need 2,100. We don't meet with them together. So they need to meet at another hotel away from us for at least a day or two. The rest of the people are not even going to register. They're just going to be around and they're going to come to the free parties. So you'd have 25,000 Shriners and their families roaming around Tampa. So we can accommodate that group in the Bahamas. We've gone after it. We hope to seal it maybe by 2029, 2030. But that's significant to us in the Bahamas. That'll be the largest fraternal group that the Bahamas has ever hosted. We've gone at it. So we just need to bring the brothers down and the sisters down to look at the opportunity. But what we do too is we can accommodate right now the big conclaves. And I tell you, AKAs have, where's Angela? Angela's in the back. She's an AKA. We cannot accommodate the 20,000 AKAs, right? And the Kappas have 25,000, their big conclave, and the Sigmas and everybody else, right? So what we do is we go after their southern region. And the southern region, you know, we can accommodate that because, you know, you probably have 5,000, 4,000 persons. And, you know, hotels like Atlantis and Bahama are, while those are capped, you know, 4,500 people for Atlantis, their biggest ballroom altogether. And they have outside space that could probably hold a little bit more. You know, so we're basically looking for creative ways in order to do business. So the retreats are the ones, and that's where Grand Bahama come in. So don't sleep on Grand Bahama, by the way. Those of you who think Grand Bahama's closed, you know, Palsec came down there last week, and so we're looking for opportunities now for Grand Bahama. What we are trying to encourage people to do, Bahamians, to come together to put their monies together and build hotels on the beach. And not look at the government to say, oh, you know, you all need to open a hotel. No, we're going to get together with Bahamians. We're going to buy properties on the beach. It's happening right now. Discussions are happening. We're going to build we want to build a 10,000 convention room facility in Grand Bahama. Nassau needs to do 20,000 because when I go after Church of God of Prophecy and Church of God of Christ, they're coming in with 20,000 persons, 25,000. And so this industry is enormous. I want to really go after them. And so I hope in the next probably 4 years, we would be able to say, hey, we're going to go after those 20, 25,000 because we now have the convention center like this one here, or even in Tampa, They had 5,000 of the sorority sisters. That convention space could have probably hold up to 20,000 people.
Yes.
And so that is what we need in the Bahamas in order to grow the business.
Uh-huh.
And so, and then obviously Wilfred could fly in 2-3 planes because people like it when the fact that they're coming in on a group. They're coming in, on the Bahamas, they're a branded plane. But don't sleep on Africa. This is how far we're going right now. Africa is coming. Our brothers and sisters in the fraternities and sororities and the civic organizations are really coming out big into the Bahamas. And so we're really going after, we're getting a group coming in January out of Johannesburg, 300 religious persons coming in. We're working on it right now. And so that's a growing market in the faith base.
Thank you.
And the sky is our limit. We're going to continue to break records on the convention side.
Thank you, Stephen. Well, you mentioned a lot of fraternity and sorority there. So I want to introduce one of our additional panelists, Mr. Velton Shoel. He's the chair of the International Site Selection Committee for Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Velton, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And when a destination wants to host a major fraternity gathering, as Stephen was educating us on, can you give us a list of some of the things that your committee is looking for beyond just the hotel rate, just the meeting space? What are some of the things you're looking for in evaluating if a destination is a fit for any of your programming?
That's an interesting question. We're actually meeting next week in Cincinnati, Ohio. And when we originally looked at Cincinnati, everything fit. We had the hotel rooms that we needed. We had the convention center space that we needed. Post-COVID-19, the script has flipped. Mm-hmm. Numbers are going through the roof. We have 10,000 registered brothers in Cincinnati, largest conclave we've ever had in our history. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati's no longer large enough. So one of the things that we have to do now is not only look at the numbers that we have today, but anticipate growth and make sure that the destination has the expandability to allow us to grow in their footprint and still maintain and do the things that we need to do as an organization. That's really one of the new nuances that has arisen recently. Additionally, we have things like airlift that we have to worry about because moving that number of people, as my illustrious friend said, we're not as large as the AKAs and the Deltas. The AKAs are in Las Vegas last week, and they had 27,000 registered ladies at their conference. Well, we're at 10,000, so we're 50%, not even 50% of that. But airlift is very important to us. The other thing that we are very cognizant of is doing business with people who look like us. Where are opportunities in our neighborhoods to leave revenue to those people that need it, who could be potentially members of our organization? We generate between $22 and $30 million in revenue to a destination when we go there. So how much of that is falling into our community is very important to us. So the last thing is we go where we are wanted, needed, and appreciated. Those three things: wanted, needed, and appreciated. Because we've gone to destinations where we've been wanted, but we find out when we get there, we're not appreciated. Mm-hmm. So the question is, when you talk to the people in your area or on the front lines of your destination, your organization, are they in tune to who we are, and what we're about? Because if they're not educated to that point, we're going to have issues. We're going to have problems. We as people are very colorful. We are sometimes loud.
The bros specifically we're talking about, or generally?
Yeah. No. There's this thing called liquid false courage, mm-hmm. and women partake of that too.
They do.
Okay, so when that happens, everybody's personality changes. So sometimes there's no malice intended, mm-hmm. but it's just a different type of organization or a different type of environment that a lot of hotels, restaurants, destinations may not be used to on a regular basis. So how do you get them in tune to recognizing and understanding that there's a difference here? It's not a negative difference, but there's a difference, and you have to handle it differently. You can't go put your hands on somebody, okay? Or you can't, get over anxious in a situation. You've got to make sure that there's a proper protocol on how to handle that. And, for those of you who know my brothers, we are mostly type A personalities.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a tendency to be rambunctious. I use
That's a
that
great
word.
word, rambunctious. But I think, it becomes very interesting because sitting as a planner, you're a third party as an advocate of the destination, the hotel, all of the vendors you're bringing to the table and the client. And I've been in meetings where the client has gotten offended on a conference call because of an assertion that was made about how loud you might have been in the lobby last year, or how did you partake in the food and beverage minimum? And it has gotten kind of cantankerous. But I want to expound on what you talked about, the fact of being expandability. As a planner, people don't often understand you are planning 3-4 years in advance so you can announce where we're going to be in 27, 28, 29. We have AHOAs coming to South Florida as well next year, and they're bringing 20,000 members. They know where they're going the next several years. Dion, your organization is growing. Talk about who PAC is so people understand your constituents as members, where they're coming from globally, so flights and connectivity become important. And also, because you're looking at how your organization is going to grow, you need a destination that if you're going to sign up next year or the year after, can have that capacity. So talk a little bit about that so people understand your constituents.
Yes. So our community, it expands. Like I said, it's 3,000 currently, former and current professional athletes with, we're all over, we're global. A lot of our members obviously based here in the US, but we have members in Europe and South Africa and Australia. And so we want to provide and create opportunities, especially for us to get together, because a lot of the in-touch moments and building those relationships that I mentioned before are super important. And so we want to obviously create opportunity on a global scale, right? So we'll host events in the Middle East. We'll host events here in Miami and in Phoenix and all over. But for us, it's really about providing the opportunity for us to do what we need to do and build what we need to build for our community. Exposing them to the different opportunities that exist. A lot of our members are growing businesses. They're getting involved in nonprofits. They're figuring out what they need or want to do next. And so bringing people from all over the globe to continue to help build on that and expand on their knowledge is really important. And so for us, it's really about just creating the best experience so that people can really get to know each other, get to learn something new, expand their network. And so for us, it's, destination obviously matters, an opportunity for us to get into those communities. Professional athletes have such an impact on people, obviously, as you just saw with the World Cup and how that brings people and culture together. And so we want to have opportunity to get them and thrust them into the communities as well. And so wherever we can give back, we want to give back just as much as we want to pull into our community. And so, yeah.
And there's so much opportunity you see in the Bahamas specifically, as well as other Caribbean destinations, that they're hosting CARICOM. They're hosting these big international events, largely because many of those people maybe can't even get visas to go to the US. Their team can't get visas to go to the US. So there's an opportunity there where if airlift existed, even if it's charter specifically for that event, to get people into the Bahamas without having to touch US soil, that's a game changer. I was sitting kind of being a fangirl at PAC when I saw the Beast, who is known for Zimbabwe rugby, and they do those like amazing. I don't know how many of you watch rugby, but you had folks that were kind of just all over the soccer folks, and he was talking about, one of the soccer players was talking about how it was difficult to get a visa to come into the United States. So having an event like that in the Caribbean becomes great for you who have an international constituency, because you're going to get to bring people who can't get to the States. So how does that look like when you're curating these conversations about Airlift Wilfred, and you talk about the opportunities available to just get on a plane? You've explored other destinations, other islands, had, limited fixed runs to other countries with those transits. Where do you see those things going forward as an opportunity?
Well, to speak to your question and about the connectivity through the various weather persons who have visa, doesn't have visa, and all that good stuff. But we are on a path right now at Bahamas Air and ensuring that those type of travelers, those type of groups who want to move not just from the United States to the Bahamas, but indeed stretching and reaching our arms straight across the Caribbean. So the opportunities are there for persons to have that opportunity to travel from, for example, um, I don't want to just call any country out there, but just use Jamaica for example.
Mhm.
We are we were looking hard at Jamaica again, so that we can ensure that the population in Jamaica can experience something that you and I experience, not by coming to the United States of America, but we can offer a service to the Bahamas. We can take you to Cuba. We can take you to Turks Island. We can take you all around the Caribbean, and the connectivity will be there to provide that service, and it'll also bring a new injection of people coming in, new tourists. Everybody is now looking for not just the sand and the sea, they want a new experience. And we can have all those things in the Bahamas. You can go to Cat Island and experience a different culture that you experience in Eleuthera or Inagua. If you're into ecotourism, you can go to Inagua, Meguana, Auckland, and Crooked Island and experience those things. So having the ability to cultivate and merge those things together, the opportunities are there, and we just have to partner with the right people to ensure that those things happen.
Well, that's what you want. So as we close, I want to ask you one question, right? Felton, for you, what is the one key thing that you would want a destination to know in order for you to feel understood and welcome?
Well, I think I stated it a little bit earlier, but one of the most important things is that the destination has done their homework. They know who we are, what we're about, and the purpose of us being there. But again, we go where we are wanted, needed, and appreciated. And if those 6 principles are upheld, then we're going to have a great opportunity to spend time together. If one of them is missing, it's going to cause some kind of consternation somewhere. So we need to make sure that we're in sync before we get there, through the time we're there. And one point that I want to make, I don't believe in customer service. Everybody talks about customer service and how important customer service is. Customer service is a Band-Aid. The key is called customer experience. And the experience begins before I walk through your door. It doesn't end until I leave. So you want to make sure that I have the best possible experience while I'm there.
Thank you. Okay. I love that. Dion, your rapid fire question. What makes athletes and the athlete-led community say this destination is worth building with? Why do you choose one?
I've talked about it a lot, relationship building, but intentionality for me. I think as someone that goes out on behalf of our community and vets locations for us to host events, being intentional, like just piggybacking off of what you said, obviously being wanted and being needed. But if you also have that intentionality, I've had a couple of experiences and I've had my family involved, and something as simple as knowing that my kids are going to be there with me and providing maybe something for my little daughter on arrival, and she carries this thing around with her even to this day, will always remind us about that experience. And so it's like, okay, if you can go out on a limb to understand myself and the community that I'm bringing to the table and make me feel, I got the feels for that. I still watch her run around with her little doll to this day, and I'm like, okay, well, they came to the table with intentionality, and so that goes a long way in us making the decision on where we're going to go and who we're going to bring our community to. And I think that it was very smart on their behalf to do so.
Thank you. Wilfred, your quick question. What makes group travel work most smoothly when working with Bahamas Air? What's the one thing you want people to know?
The one thing I want them to know about working with our groups department is, to piggyback off of the good gentleman on the end, the experience you'll be getting when you connect with Bahamas Air. Bahamas Air, we are the national flag carrier. Wherever you see Bahamas Air goes, that's a prideful thing for Bahamas Air to touch down, whether it's in markets here in the Florida gateways, our destinations throughout the Bahamas, and indeed the Caribbean that we fly to. The experience that we are cultivating in the sales and marketing department right now is going to be lifetime experiences. Something that you will always remember. Something that when you pick up the phone and you call Bahamas Air, the first thing, that warm voice that you'll be hearing, that smile through the voice, that you'll be experiencing. And Bahamas Air, we are the national flag carrier. We just don't fly here. We live here. And I know this is my last time probably speaking to the microphone as the time is up. I want to encourage everybody, your next trip to the Bahamas, the best way to get to the Bahamas is flying on Bahamas Air. You cannot experience anything than flying to the Bahamas on Bahamas Air. And we look forward to seeing you again on another Bahamas Air flight. If those of you who haven't, please sign up to have an opportunity to experience one of our family violence in the Bahamas. I can promise you, once you go to the Bahamas once, you always want to come back to the Bahamas.
Thank you. So I don't know. I think you got your last word, Stephen. That was a great Bahamas commercial right there.
Boy, he's the best. This is, by the way, a Hatchet Bay boy. So by, I guess, family with descent, we were, a lot of my family is from Hatchet Bay as well, and James, Sister, and Luthra. And so, the Bahamas is going to continue to dominate the MICE and the meeting and the Smurf market just by reaching out to persons like Omega Sci-Fi. We had Omega Sci-Fi down 2 years ago. They had about 4,500 members. And we're looking at PAC. We're trying to get PAC. We had them down as well too. And what we did was we brought, and this is through Andy and PJ, not only did they bring down the members of PAC, they brought the families down. And so his daughter would have been able to experience the beach. And so we're counting on the little kids to say, Daddy, we need to go back to the Bahamas, right? And so just the experiences, the overall experiences of what we do, the groups that we bring in, the relationships that we forge, we go back really deep with this, and we depend on persons like Randy, and you would see the Prime Minister tonight, who is a member of the Lodge, and a Shriner, and so is the Deputy Prime Minister. And so through them, we tell the story of, because of them, we're able to stretch ourselves out into worldwide markets. And why we work so well in the Smurf market and do so well in the fraternities and all that, because we got the base. We got the average person who leaves the Bahamas and go to school and come back. They're going to join a fraternity or sorority or whatever. And so when people ask us why we dominate with Jamaica in the Smurf and all that, we got the base. Not that Jamaica's not trying to take us, But we've got the base in the Bahamas where people come and they become members of the fraternities and sororities. And when you're like a mega sci-fi looking at a destination, a mega sci-fi is not going to go anywhere where they don't have a chapter or they don't have a base. And that's where we come in and beat out other destinations. Remember now, we're up against, when I go up against a group, I'm up against the US markets. And for me to take down some giants in the US, bringing these groups into the Bahamas is significant. And so we're really excited about the future. We got some great facilities and some good things going on, and continue to see the dominance of the Bahamas and destinations coming up like Grand Bahama. And so we're really excited about the opportunities ahead.
Thank you. Well, thank you, my panelists, Velton Shoel, Wilfred Mullings, Dion Curry, Stephen Johnson. Thank you so much. All right. Our next session is Bahamas Diaspora's opening session, Bahamians investing from the diaspora in the Bahamas. All right.
Thank you so much to the Bahamas, to Bahamas Air for sponsoring
So we're going to get a group.
this distinguished panel, Destinations Attracting Meetings, Incentives, Conventions, and Events in MICE and SMERF. Thank you to our moderator, PJ Douglas Sands, President of the International Multicultural and Heritage Tourism Network, and Travel and Tourism and Hospitality Certified AI Strategist. She's also the president of DS3 Group of Companies. Thank you to Mr. Wilfred Mullings, Deputy Director of Sales and Marketing, able to give a live Bahamas Air ad on stage, along with Stephen Johnson, Director of Smurf Markets and Tourism Development Corporation, and Dion Curry, Director of Business Development for the Pro Athlete Community, PAC. Our next panel begins the Bahamas Diaspora opening session. We'll be discussing Bahamians investing from the diaspora in the Bahamas. This powerful session explores how Bahamians living abroad can make meaningful investments back home through capital, donations, business ventures, partnerships, and the transfer of knowledge and skills. We will discuss real-world strategies, legal considerations, and success stories that showcase how the diaspora can find entrepreneurship, innovation, and long-term economic growth in the Bahamas. Whether you're looking to start a business, invest in existing ventures, or contribute to intellectual capital, this session offers tools to turn passion into impact. An amazing round of panelists will appear, and it will be moderated by Dr. Andy Ingraham, President and CEO of the Bahamas Diaspora Association. I will list the panelists for you shortly. Thanks for staying with us.